Hello, everyone, and welcome to an episode of Inside LSU Baseball. I'm your host, Jason Armstrong, and I am fired up today. What an incredible weekend for LSU, winning 2 out of 3 games against the Tennessee Volunteers, last year's national championship, 2 of the heavyweights of the sport of college baseball, and it was not easy. Didn't always feel great about it, but the Tigers did what they had to do on the field. And it's been a lot of fun seeing the fan bases go at it on Twitter. The players went at it on the field, got very, very chippy. And, I think it actually makes it a little bit more fun. But anyway, we're here to do the recap. And we are going to jump right in. LSU wins the rubber match and wins the series and improves to 36-9 on the year. They're sitting at 14-7 in SEC play. Tennessee fell to 35-9 and 13-8 in SEC play. LSU is now tied for second place with Arkansas. Both teams are sitting at 14-7. Still a good bit behind Texas. I don't know that anybody's catching Texas, who's sitting at 19-2 right now. So you're 5 games behind Texas, and I don't know, with 9 games left, that's something that's going to happen. But more importantly, you want to be playing well down the stretch. You want to solidify a national seed. So it's nice to win the conference, but there's bigger things at stake. Now, your next 3 opponents did not have great weekends. Arkansas lost 2 games out of 3. A&M got swept, and South Carolina dropped their series going 1-2. So, depending on what they do down the stretch, but Arkansas, I think, has lost their last 3 straight series. A&M was playing well, and then they got swept this weekend. South Carolina hasn't been good all year, but, you're on the up and up after a big series win, and with all these other teams coming off losses and multiple losses at that, maybe you're going to catch these guys at the right time. How about the home teams in the SEC this weekend going 8-0, winning every series? So that was, just exemplifies how important it is to have, series at your place. And when you do, to win those series. And the Tigers did just that. Let's look at where LSU stands now in the top 8 seed picture. Every projected top 8 seed lost this past weekend except for Texas and LSU. So we talked about the number 1 seed. Texas handled business against A&M. The number 2, and I'm going by the latest projected D1 top 8 seeds going into the weekend. The number 2 seed Clemson got swept by NC State. Arkansas, the number 3 seed, lost the series to Florida. LSU was 4. They won. Tennessee was 5. They lost. Number 6, FSU. Florida State lost the series to Louisville. And then the number 7 seeded Oregon State got swept by their rival Oregon. And then Vandy lost the series to Ole Miss. So as of right now, LSU is a comfortable top 8 seed. And based on the remaining schedule of SEC teams that you're kind of neck and neck with, as well as the other teams that you're competing for that home field advantage, I think going 4-5 over the next 3 weekends lands you home field advantage throughout. And I'm to where I now believe that 18 wins, it looks like top 8 seed material. I've been going by 19 wins, but as I look what other teams are doing, you might be safe with 18 wins this year. Now, still good to shoot for 19 because I think that's a slam dunk. But I think you're in really good shape. That's what it comes down to. Now, about this weekend, rather than state the obvious, I'm going to point out some key contributing factors to the LSU series win. I'm going to tell you what moments really swayed the momentum in the series towards LSU, as well as highlight some of the impressive performances, and there were a lot of those. But as I kind of give an overview of the series, I mean, LSU found a way to win this series, and it's a series that they were pretty much dominated in 17 of the first innings played. Now, I will tell you that there is a take out there saying, well, Tennessee was Dean Curley's errors away from winning the series and that they really outplayed LSU. I don't believe that one bit. As a matter of fact, if you look at who LSU scored runs against, it was Tennessee's best. It was their best, Now, they didn't score against Liam Doyle, but they did score against Marcus Phillips before he exited the game, and they scored against their top relievers. Nate Snead scored 6 runs off of him. Tanner Franklin scored off of him. Who else was it? Arvidsson and Loy are their other 2 big relievers. They got 4 top relievers. And so the guys you scored against, it was against their best. I don't know if you can really say the same about LSU. When they went nuts against LSU, you were trying to save some of your pitching. And we'll get all into that. But, both teams had one big inning that contributed to them winning a game. LSU's 6-run ninth of game 1 was a big deal. And then Tennessee had a 6-run 8th inning of game 2. But LSU limited Tennessee to just that one big inning all series long, whereas LSU had a couple more big innings over the course of the weekend. And I think that was a really big key to this, is when you got a potent offense like Tennessee has, is just making sure that they don't go wild. So of all the things that I thought possible in this series, scoring 6 runs in the bottom of the 9th was not one of them. LSU had scored 6 runs twice in the last 9 conference games. Just really one of the greatest, most thrilling games I've watched LSU play. I think back to the 2022 Hattiesburg Regional, the comeback against Kennesaw State. I think about the 2023 College World Series Classic against Wake Forest. When Tommy White hits the walk-off home run. I think of the 2024 in Hoover, the game against South Carolina. You actually had 2 of those crazy games, but when Monster Milam walked it off after a big comeback, and then the regional against Wofford when Monster Milam walked that one off too. All of those were incredible LSU wins over the last few years, but this one might take the cake, just considering the opponent, where you were kind of headed as far as like how you've been playing, what a loss might have meant right there. This was just a massive, massive win. So when I look at how the series shaped up, that was just such an enormous a comeback that I think we'll be talking about for a long time. Now, Marcus Phillips saw to it that Tennessee bounced back. And that was a very, very tight game. It was a 1-run game in the 8th inning, but Tennessee pulled away late and set up a enormous rubber match. And we all know how the story ended. It went our way, but this was just such a good series, especially when you win it. It's even more exciting. And I said this on the preview and have said it numerous times. LSU has to win the games that Zach Cowan and Kason Evans pitch in, and that's exactly what they did this weekend. That's just how it unfolded. This team is better than any team in the country, in my opinion, for 2 games. When you've got Cade Anderson and Anthony Einson as your two starters, and you're following those two guys with either Cowan or Evans in whatever order, I will take that over every team in the country. The trick is managing the first two games in a way where you can ensure you don't waste one of those bullpen guys. And that's what Jay did this weekend. I know some people were upset watching game 2 unfold because look, you're in a 3-2 game after you scored 2. It's 3-2 in the 8th, and you know you ran out Chase Shores right there, and things didn't go your way. But the exact way that Jay Johnson handled that, he was playing the long game, and that's why you ultimately won the series. So offensively, it was really a mixed bag for the Tigers. I think what stands out is like the 9th inning of game 1 and then game 3 because it's fresh in our mind. But overall, I mean, LSU was 23 for 99. That's a 232 batting average. So, those two starting pitchers really held LSU down for their two starts. You were a lot better with runners in scoring position. You were 8 for 26, which is 308, and that is a big improvement to what LSU has been doing. I also love that you were 3 for 6 in pinch hit situations with a homer and a 2 RBI single. Tennessee didn't have a pinch hit. I don't even know if they tried, but that is just a great luxury to be able to go to in that series and in those high leverage spots. I mean, just a really good job by guys stepping up and delivering in a big way. You had 7 home runs. Your offense, really, the power was nice to see. And the 21 runs that the team scored is the most runs scored by this offense since the Mississippi State series. That was 4 series ago. Big improvement there. You only struck out 23 times, and you might say, well, that's still, almost 8 a game. But like against that offense, against that pitching staff, I think that's really, really good. Now, you look at Tennessee, they hit 270 on the weekend. They were 27 for 100. With runners in scoring position, they were good. They were 10 for 31. So that's a 323 clip. But you really limited them leaving the yard, which was key. They hit 1 home run this weekend, 1 to LSU 7. And you struck them out 31 times. So good job overall, limiting a very, very powerful offense. So now the two starters, Liam Doyle and Marcus Phillips, guys, they're just that good. College players are not supposed to hit guys like that. And so it's easy to focus on the fact for 2 games that you couldn't get anything going. But those are just really good pitchers. And when they're executing pitches, you're not going to do a whole bunch other than maybe run into one. And you did that to Phillips late in the game and get those guys out of the game. That's the strategy. Those 2 guys, they combined for 13 in the 3rd innings, only 4 hits, 2 earned runs, 7 walks, 12 strikeouts. So LSU was 4 for 43 off of Tennessee's top 2 starting pitchers. That's a .093 batting average. Now, they did allow 2 home runs, and those were both from Marcus Phillips. As good as those guys were, I think LSU made up for it against their good relievers. LSU did a number on Tennessee's top 4 bullpen arms, and that is Snead, Franklin, Loy, and Arvidsson. Those 4 guys combined pitched 8 innings, allowing 8 hits, 10 runs, and LSU worked them for 5 free passes. That's an excellent job. Those 4 bullpen guys are really good. And most games, when you see Tanner Franklin and, Snead in the game, you're not doing much against those guys. And that goes back to last year with Snead. He was a big piece of that team that won it all. So, and against, look, Tennessee's potent lineup, I will tell you that LSU's pitching was excellent outside of one inning, and that was a 6-run 8th inning in game 2. LSU's pitching allowed just 14 runs to a team, and this again is a team that is on pace to break LSU's all-time home run record from 1997. Now, Georgia is actually ahead of that a little bit right now, but this is a very potent offense. I mean, extremely potent. 2 of the games, Tennessee did not score over 3 runs. So out of the 26 innings, LSU pitching held Tennessee to just 1 big inning. I consider anything, 3 runs and more, especially 4 runs, a big inning. And Tennessee hung a crooked number just 3 times all weekend. And 2 of those were just 2-run innings. So when you look at Tennessee's ability to just kind of go crazy and demoralize teams by, hitting the long ball and putting up some, innings that a lot of times are going to be more than the other team scores all game. They just were not able to do it. They weren't. And I want to point out that so much was made of Tennessee's Friday and Saturday starter, and rightly so. They were great. But maybe I'm crazy, but Anderson and Ianson might not have been that good, but they were almost just as good. I already talked about that Phillips and Doyle combined for 13 and a third innings. Well, Anderson and Ianson went 13 innings. They gave up more hits. They gave up 3 times as many hits as Tennessee's 2 guys did, but they only gave up 4 earned runs compared to Tennessee's 2 earned runs. The walk, seven bases on balls, same as Tennessee's 2 top guys gave up. They struck out more batters than Phillips and Doyle did. Anderson and Ianson had 19 strikeouts, and it wasn't a .93 batting average, but still limited Tennessee to 244 batting average and gave up 0 home runs. That's the big thing. Anderson and Ianson gave up 0 home runs. Now, you throw Evans into the mix, and you have hands down LSU's best starting pitching of any conference series this year. Well, let me take that back. Actually, outside of the Oklahoma series, because I don't think you gave up an earned run in the Oklahoma series, but the conditions were not really ripe for hitting in that series. And I don't think that's anywhere near the offense of Tennessee. So I'm still going to say this is probably the most impressive starting pitching that you got. So you add Case and Evans to the starting rotation, and you had 19 innings, just 6 earned runs, 7 walks to 25 strikeouts. That's a 2.84 ERA with 67% strikes thrown. I mean, the most significant of this stat line that I just read to me is the length, because the only series where the 3 starters for LSU eclipsed 19 innings was the Oklahoma series, and they went 19 and 2/3. And that's thanks to Cade Anderson throwing a 135 pitch, 9-inning complete game. Every other series, you're anything from 11 innings to 15 innings. That's from your 3 starters. So, when you get that much length from your 3 starters, it makes life a lot easier on your bullpen. Here's kind of an odd stat, but all 3 starters for LSU allowed 6 hits and 2 earned runs. All of them. Anderson, Ianson, Evans. And that's pretty dang good, 2 earned runs for all 3 of your starters. You're going to win a lot of series like that. Now, I know everyone wants to talk about Case and Evans being inserted into the Sunday role, and we're going to get to that after we talk about each of these games. So, don't get me wrong. When you watch Case and Evans come out and give you that kind of start, and it's the freshest thing in your mind, it's only natural to say, well, hey, I mean, even Kendall Rogers is tweeting out, there's your Sunday starter. But I think there are more to it. All right. Now, when you gobble up that many innings from your starting rotation, I talked about the pressure that it puts on the bullpen. It's so much less, which is so important right now for this LSU team, because you still have too many guys struggling to throw strikes. There were a couple of performances that were promising, and a guy like Primo, he threw strikes and he had a really big strikeout. Also, he gave up the homer, but I like what I saw from Cooper Williams. He commanded his fastball. He landed his breaking ball at will. And Cannon Peebles hit a good pitch over the left field fence. So, I liked what I saw from him, even though his stat line didn't look great. I even like Grant Fontenot. I mean, 97 with a bender. I'd like to see more of that. And even while struggling, I liked seeing Chase Shores pump 100 miles an hour. He even got up to 102. He allowed just one hit. The problem is that all of his issues typically come back to command and hitting guys, walking guys, being behind in counts. But I am not giving up on Chase Shores in that type of relief role at all. Outside of the usual suspects and the guys who start every game that you're used to coming through, this series really displayed the team more than any I can remember. I mean, Dalton Beck, John Pearson, Ashton Larson, Tanner Reeves. And how about this? Aaron Beatty playing game 2 gave Hernandez a day off, and look at what Luis Hernandez did on Sunday. So there's just so much to like about what we saw this series from so many different guys. Let's do this. Let's fly through some of the key moments of the series and touch on some of these top performers. But let's start with game 1. Unless you were under a rock, you are well aware of how this game unfolded. There was a 3.5-hour delay. This was going to be one of the biggest crowds ever. I think it was still a great crowd. It was a loud crowd. And look, didn't start great. I mean, Kate Anderson, I think, walks the first batter on like 5 pitches. And LSU was dominated by Liam Doyle for 6 2/3. You got him out the game with 2 outs in the 7th after a Jake Brown walk. Josh Pearson had a pinch hit single off of Tanner Franklin, but Larson would fly out to end the inning. I mean, this is a scoreless game into the 6th inning. Kate Anderson was absolutely dealing versus the Tennessee lineup. Again, we talk so much about Liam Doyle, but Kate Anderson was very sharp. Top of the 6th inning, Gavin Keelan singled to left field, advanced on a wild pitch, and Andrew Fisher singled right up the middle, and just like that, it's 1-0. Credit Anderson, he forces a double play, and he limits the damage. Bottom 6th inning, Jones 2-out single was the first hit of the game for LSU, and it was an important hit for Jared Jones because the longer into the series that this thing went without him hitting, I think the more pressure that would have built up. So bottom of the 7th, LSU had 2 on after Pearson greeted Tanner Franklin with a 2-out single. The Tigers just weren't able to deliver. Top of the 8th, Fisher's 1-out double knocked Anderson from the game. Zach Gowen is now in the game. And with the infield playing in, Hunter Inslee snuck a ground ball just to the left of Danny Dickinson. And so now it's a 2-0 game. Bottom of the 8th, is they go to Nate Snead. This is their guy. And Stanfield singled off of him. It was a bloop to right field. So you thought you had something, but you couldn't get anything going. So you go into the top of the 9th, and look, I know he wasn't perfect, but Jacob Myers entering the game right there, I thought that, because you're talking about a 2-0 game still. He retires the leadoff. That was big. And I want to point out, he continues to get chances and he's throwing a lot more strikes, a lot more. He's not going to be perfect every time, but I love that in that environment, you can go to him. He would walk Levi Clark and then he would get the second out when Dean Curley flew out. So he was close to getting out of this inning, but he gave up a 2-out, 2-strike double to Keelan, who's just an incredible hitter. And that made it 3-0 Vols. I think at this point, look, the game's over, right? Everybody's going, we got no chance. We had to throw up a 0 right there. But from this point on, things got wacky. The next out, to get out the inning, it was a runner's interference where Keelan ran into Tanner Reeves at third base. And so you get out the inning right there. Bottom of the ninth, between innings, a student gets ejected out of right field for allegedly throwing something at Reese Chapman, which I don't condone that, but I did love how fired up the crowd still was in a 3-0 game. And it looked like everybody was just chirping at the outfielder. And again, I don't think it's a good idea to throw things at the outfielder. But look, I don't know. You call it rally toss 'em? Is that what we're going by? After the student gets tossed, things kind of went well right there. In the preview, I mentioned the 13 errors that this Tennessee defense had made over the last, I think it was 3 conference series. And I also talked about how Tony V has been shuffling around this defense. I mean, against Kentucky, Dean Curley's playing second base. Previous to that, he's playing shortstop. Then you got Manny Marin playing third. Then he's at shortstop. Then he's bench. Gavin Keelan's DH, and he's second. They're just not comfortable. And you really saw this come to life in the ninth inning. You had 2 errors by third baseman. Yeah. Why am I drawing a blank right now? The Dean Curley. So after 2 errors by him and a walk versus the number 1 reliever Tennessee has, Dalton Beck stepped to the plate with the bases loaded, 1 out, down 3-0. And one thing I'll say about Dalton Beck, even his swing against Alabama, I know he struck out taking 2 pitches from a nasty sidearm guy, leading the nation in saves. But his first swing was good. It was on time. Even against Snead, I thought his first swing looked pretty good. And look, he delivers right there. Another short, compact swing, almost takes Snead's head off and drives a fastball right up the middle. And it is a 3-2 ball game, and the box is going absolutely nuts. I'm talking nuts. You get Curriel up to the plate, and I don't know, even going back to game 1 before we saw what he did game 3, I don't know anybody else that you would want up in that situation. And he delivers with a 2-out single to tie the game. And from there, Jared Jones hits a ball as far as you could possibly hit it after what I thought was very interesting is that the at-bat before, Snead struck Jones out with a fastball at the knees. Well, this at-bat right here, the first 2 strikes on Jones were both sliders. He looked at one, and then the other one he fouled off, and he didn't look particularly great on that one. So with 2 strikes, Snead goes back to the fastball, but he elevated it, and Jones was right on it. 96-mile-an-hour fastball. He hit it a ton over the batter's eye, and that is the game. It was one of the most incredible endings that I've watched, and man, what an important win for an LSU team that's really just – you've been waiting for something like that to happen, and you it's even better when a guy that you're going to need to step up like Jared Jones comes through for you. I don't care how good you are. When you get in a little slump, man, baseball is mental. You start to doubt things. That was just really incredible for him. And there were so many contributions by different players in this game. You love to see it. We talked about Jay pulling the right strings, going to Dalton Beck right there. Tanner Reeves, what a great job of walking right there and not chasing a fastball. But not only did he pull the right strings with the pinch hitting and things like that, how about putting Jared Jones back in the 2-hole after a 5-game hiatus? Jared Jones had been hitting, 3-hole, 4-hole. This was the first game that he went back to the 2-hole since, I believe, Auburn. And he came up in just the right spot to win the game right there. So kudos to Jay for that. Game 2, Marcus Phillips was the story. Just a dominant performance. And look, Anthony Ianson was really good as well. Ianson had 5 strikeouts and only allowed a couple of singles through the first 3 innings. But this was a true pitcher's duel. Tennessee struck first in the top of the fourth inning after Chapman's leadoff double. Bargo singled, followed by a bloop single from Cannon Peebles. All 3 lefties came through right there with hits. And Anthony Ianson, he did escape, almost escape right there with a double play that hit right to him. But the way that we were playing, I don't know if Dickinson was there or got his foot on the bag, but we wound up getting it out. But a run did score right there in the 4th for the Vols to go up 2-0. Top of the 5th with 2 runners on, Ianson struck out Chapman, and then Aaron Beatty threw out Keelan, stealing 3rd. So, look, he's cruising. The problem is you can't do anything against Marcus Phillips. So, bottom of 5th, seemed like LSU had the momentum when Milan busted out of a dry spell with a double to left field. This was the first hit of the game for LSU. And in back-to-back nights, LSU was hitless late in the game. Game 1, Doyle, I think it was the 6th inning you got your first hit. Now game 2 against Phillips, you get your first hit in the 5th. But you got a runner on second, no outs, and this is the first real opportunity for LSU. But LSU would get first and third with 1 out, but a pop-up from Stanfield, and then Curiel tried to lay down a bunt with 2 outs, but just couldn't beat it out, so you got nothing. Top of the 6th, Ianson was cruising, striking out the first 2 batters, and then he was ahead 0-2 to Manny Marin. But, man, what an at-bat by Manny Marin. It was 11 pitch at bat. He fouled off a bunch of pitches, so he actually drew a bases on ball. William Schmidt came in, and he gets 1 strike, but he walks in Antigua on a 3-1 count. Antigua's a 9-hole hitter, and so that was it. Jones pulled William Schmidt right there, and look, this is one of these issues where you got to be able to go to guys to step up, and it's a guy throwing 96. He just missed on a really good breaking ball that they called the ball. I think the deal with Schmidt, and with a lot of these guys, it's pitching ahead. When they get behind, it's just they press, and he loses at command, and so it wasn't a long outing for William Schmidt. But I thought it was interesting. This is when Ariel Antigua got down the first, and he started running his mouth to Jared Jones. And from that point on, LSU fans did not stop. It was just so chippy, and I don't know what Ariel Antigua thinks he's got going on. Look, I've done Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu a long time. I know some little bitty guys that can tie you up in knots. So maybe Ariel Antigua knows some type of the grappling art, the great gentle art. But if not, I don't know what he's doing running his mouth to Bear Jones. So, but look, Rizzi comes in and walked Dean Curley, then got Gavin Keelan to ground out with the bases loaded, which was anytime that guy comes to the plate, I'm scared to death. So it's amazing LSU is still in the game at this moment. I mean, they're living dangerously. I mean, very dangerously. So, top of the seventh, Tennessee got another run. LSU was lucky to limit it to just one. Primo did a really nice job. And this is when Shores comes in and he's hitting, 100 on the radar. But you just can't walk guys. You can't you got to be able to get ahead of hitters, and that's what we're just seeing time after time with these LSU pitchers right now. So at some point, I think it's going to click. I really do, but you're just limited right now on who you can use, and that's the problem. Top of the seventh, you walk Fisher. Inslee gets a single. That's when you went to Primo. Then Chapman did the swinging bunt, so the bases are loaded, and Primo got Bargo to strike out. So good job by him. This is when you bring in Shores, and he gives up a sac fly. So that's when Tennessee scratched a run across. I'll give it to Shores. He did get out of it. And bottom of seven, LSU fans had something to cheer about. You get Milam hits, I want to say the first pitch of an inning, a fastball elevated over the right field fence. Braswell then goes, back to back with a homer in the left center. So in 3 pitches, it's now a 3-2 game. But that is all they would get that inning. And so it's a 1-run game, which is wild considering how much control it seemed like Tennessee had. It felt like a real blowout, and you needed a shutdown inning in the 8th. But Chase Shores hits Ariel Antigua. Shores does get a ground out by Curley, but then Keelan singled. They walked Fisher intentionally, and then with the bases loaded, Shores hit Inslee, so that gives them a run right there. They're up 4-2. Jay Johnson goes to Cooper Williams, and he gets a great strikeout of Reese Chapman right there. So it's like 4-2. You got, 2 outs? You're still in the game, but Dalton Bargo gets a single under Jones's glove that maybe if he gets in front, he stops. But anyway, it's now 6-2, and then Cooper Williams threw a good pitch, and Cannon Peebles just hit it over the left field fence. So just like that, it is 9-2. And it got away from you. So the only bright spot from here on, like this point forward, was that John Pearson hit a pinch hit home run. Love to see that off of Dylan Loy, one of their best relievers. And then Grant Fontenot's performance. I mean, this guy's up to 97. He actually struck Andrew Fisher out with a fastball on the inside corner. And look, man, that's something. LSU's looking for arms. So good to see him maybe seize that moment, and we'll see what happens with him. So the Tigers dropped game 2, 9-3, setting up just a huge game 3 rubber match. And the talk was, who is going to start for LSU game 3? I was wrong. I thought they would go to Connor Ware right there. When I saw the lineup that Kason Evans was starting, I'll be honest, got a little nervous. Can't say I loved it, because in my mind, the biggest fear for me was what happened was them getting on Kason Evans, because I figured you were going to need outs from somebody later in the game. What I didn't expect is for the offense to jump out in a way that you could run rule them in 8 innings, and Cowan and Evans would finish the game. I did not expect that. So great to see him seize the moment. The true freshman duo of Kason Evans and Derek Curiel really were the difference in this game, and led LSU to a 12-2 win, and ultimately gave LSU the series. Look, Kason Evans worked 6 innings, earning the win. Curriell, who earned SEC Freshman of the Week, was 4 for 4 at the plate. He had a homer, 2 doubles, and 5 RBIs. That's ridiculous. Jay Johnson said it was one of the best games he's ever had a player play. Evans, who's now 3-0, pitched a career-long 6 innings, and he limited this Tennessee offense to the 2 runs on 6 hits, no walks. That's a big one. 6 strikeouts. And look, after allowing the 2 runs on 4 hits in the first inning, I mean, he gave up just 2 hits through 5 scoreless innings the rest of the way. What a job. For the 3rd straight game, Tennessee got out to a lead in the first or got off to a lead with the 2 runs in the first. Derek Curriell then led off the bottom half of the first with a home run. Jones fouled with a single, and it just felt different right there. Seeing those two guys you really need, get on, it was big. Curriell tied the game in the 2nd inning with an RBI double before right fielder Jake Brown gave the Tigers a 5-2 lead, blasting a home run way up into the right field bleachers. And the 3-run homer put LSU up 5-2. And that would be LSU would never surrender that lead for the rest of the game. I think that's Jake Brown's 4th home run of the year. And that was the turning point of the series. I mean, of the game, big time. LSU added a run in the 4th when Chris Stanfield tripled. I mean, couldn't have placed that any better. It just kept carrying. And if you watch a lot of college baseball, you know that Hunter Inslee is a great center fielder. He tracks down about everything, and that ball just kept going and couldn't get to it. Stanfield scored on Derek Curriell's single. Tigers then extended the score to 8-2 in the 5th when who else? Derek Curriell drilled a 2-run double after third baseman Michael Braswell and Luis Hernandez. Good to see him. They worked back-to-back walks. Solo homer by Braswell increased the lead to 9-2 in the 7th. And then the Tigers actually added on 3 more in the 8th to run rule the Tennessee Vols. What an incredible way, an exclamation point on the series. And I'm going to tell you, one of my maybe favorite things of the entire weekend was Hernandez and Braswell. That was my favorite. Matter of fact, the 10-run rule came from it wasn't from Braswell. It was from Hernandez hitting the ball off the wall. That's what it was that drove in the final 2 runs. But seeing Braswell hit 2 home runs in back-to-back games, and then Luis Hernandez, who's been so cold, have the game he had in Game 3, was awesome. Because you know those guys at the top of the lineup are going to get it done. Milam's going to break out. Dickinson had 1 hit all series. You know he's going to come around. But seeing some power from Braswell, the at-bats he had, and then Hernandez is just an awesome sign for this LSU team. Cowan worked the final 2 innings, allowing no runs on 1 hit. And guess what? Tennessee threw 8 arms at you, and the Tigers punished all of them, finishing with 13 hits. Just a really big win for more reasons than just the record and the national seeding. I mean, they needed to know they still had this in the tank. I talk about it all the time. It's such a mental game. And no matter how many games you've won, how confident you are, you know, when you get swept at Auburn and don't score any runs and struggle offensively against Alabama, you know, especially the first game, have to come from behind, get run ruled against Northwestern State. They needed to know that they still had this in them. Now, let's talk about the Kason Evans dilemma. Everybody wants him to start. I will just tell you that I think you have to stay with Sunday TBA. You have to, okay? Yes, if he starts on Sunday, are you in a great position? Absolutely. Are you always going to score 12 runs? Not even close. And if you knew that you could just go to Evans and Cowan on game 3, then yeah. But this is a series where you almost had to like sacrifice game 2 in a way once you knew you did not have a lead in the 8th inning. You kind of had to sacrifice that game to win it on game 3. I mean, look, you saw what happened. If you're a guy that goes, I want Jason Evans starting on Sunday, you saw what happened. Anthony Einson gave you a tremendous start, and you're in a 3-2 game in the 8th inning. And what happens? It's now 9-2. When you didn't turn to Cowan, you didn't turn to Evans, you gave up 6 runs. So, look, you have got, I said it before a million times, said it again, you got to win the games that Evans and Cowan pitch in until some of these guys who will be capable at some point you're able to count on it. But right now, you're just really not. You've got to be able to use those guys in the right spot and get what you can out of them. But look, you go to A&M, and let's say you go to Cowan game 1 in the 7th inning and he preserves a 4-2 lead. Game 2, you've got a 5-3 lead in the 6th inning with 2 outs. You're telling me you don't think you're going to go to Jason Evans right there? That you're going to say, no, we've got him penciled in for game 3? Of course not. Of course not. You've got to use Evans and Cowens to win 2 games, however that may be. So, no, I'm not penciling in Jason Evans to start game 3. I'm going to just go with Sunday TBA and see how you do the first 2 games. That's what I think about how you use Evans. One thing I was thinking about that I think is a fun hypothetical. If I asked you, you got 1 game, everybody's rested, there is no game coming up, there was no game before, and you've got, say it's the 7th inning, and you've got a 2-run lead. Right now, who would you go to, Jason Evans or Zach Cowan? I would love to know. We might have to do a Twitter poll. I'm fascinated to know what everybody would think. Maybe because it's so fresh seeing Jason Evans go 6 innings. But I think up until yesterday, you'd probably argue that Zach Cowan was probably your of the 2. A little more of a sure thing. Not by much. They've both been great. But he's kind of been the first guy out. But I don't know. I would love to know what everybody thinks about that. I mean, it's a great problem to have, and it's why I think in 2 games, LSU's better than any team in the country. So let's talk about who shined this weekend. Derek Curiel, say no more, 7 for 15 with 2 doubles, 2 home runs, 4 runs, and 7 RBIs. I mean, and when you needed it most, the tensions were high. You're down 2-0 in a rubber match. He leads off with a home run. The 2nd inning, he comes back with a double. I mean, look, the kid is just special. Very, very special. The only bad thing about Derek Curiel is we only get him for 2 years. That's it. We'd love to get that guy for 3 years. You're only going to get him for 2. And he's probably going to be a top 5 pick in the entire draft. Bear Jones, 4 for 12 on the weekend. He had a home run. He had a double. And who he did it against was impressive. I mean, he gets a single against Liam Doyle and then hits a home run against Tennessee's best reliever, Nate Snead. So that was really impressive of Jared Jones. Also want to point out Braswell. He was 2 for 9 with 2 home runs, 3 RBI. How about this stat? Michael Braswell out-homered Tennessee 2-1. How you like that? How you like them apples? Michael Braswell hit more home runs than Tennessee hit this weekend. Tennessee is the number 2 home run hitting team in the country. I know everybody wants to talk about Lindsey Nelson in the field. I think there's something to that. But look, I would like to give a lot of credit to LSU's pitching, though, more so to the dimensions. Yes, they hit a lot of balls to the wall. I think the wind blows out a lot at Lindsey Nelson. And I won't argue, a 390, I think it is, center field. That's not very far. So there is something to that. But again, I would like to credit LSU's pitching as well. So Braswell coming through with the back-to-back homers. Love to see that. Reminded me of last year when he got hot. He led off one of the games in Hoover, either against Georgia or Kentucky with a homer. A couple games later in the Chapel Hill region, he hit another one. So good to see his power coming along. You also had some big games. Maybe not great weekends, but good big games or big moments. I already talked about Beck. I mean, Dalton Beck with the pinch hit, 2 RBI single when you were losing 3-2 in the ninth inning with Nate Snead throwing 98. And it's a guy who can get it up to 100. I mean, what a big swing by Dalton Beck. John Pearson, I mean, look, the game was out of hand, but that's big for the future, for him, for Jay, knowing that you can go to him against Dylan Lloyd. Nobody hits Dylan Lloyd at all. The guy's got one of the best breaking balls in the country. One of my keys to beating him, though, was make him throw fastballs, lay off his big breaking ball, and he's got to make him throw for a strike, punish his fastball, and that's what he got. He got a fastball and drove it out. Luis Hernandez has been – we talk about Jared Jones. I mean, look, Luis Hernandez has been in a funk, and he went 2 for 4 with 2 RBIs in Game 3. He had a double and a triple. Look at him, a double, a triple, and a walk. Man, that's a guy down the stretch that can give you some power, and he's a vet, man. He's had a lot of at-bats. Other guy I got to bring up, Jake Brown. He didn't have a good weekend. He had 1 hit all weekend. I don't know if he was 1 for 14, 13, 15. I don't know, but I mean, he was 1 for 5 yesterday. And but that hit was the catalyst for LSU winning the series. That home run he hit changed everything. He also had some really good outfield play against the wall. And in the game 1 where LSU mounted the comeback, I mean, he hit the ball hard. That Dean Curley wound up booting. Dean Curley had to go towards the shortstop hole to make that play. A shortstop's not making that play. He's going to have to backhand that, and he's not getting Jake Brown at first. So the fact that he put that in play, he had a better weekend than his stats, okay? And look, the thing about LSU right now, no team is on fire for the entire season. They all have peaks and valleys. So the fact that right now you get that win, I don't care how it looked for, what was it, 17 of the first 18, whatever it was. I don't care. They pulled out a win, and then Sunday they put it on them. They put a hurting on them. They got the series win when their backs were against the wall and they needed it. And that's what you need. This team can go as far as anybody else can go. And I'm excited about what's ahead of them. They've got a tough Southeastern team coming to town. You had some key arms didn't pitch this weekend. Connor Ware didn't pitch. Jaden Newt didn't pitch. William Schmidt faced 1 batter. So, Southeastern's a very good team. They're having one of their best years in a long time. So that's going to be a good midweek contest for LSU. And then you go to A&M. And A&M has been playing better than anybody in the country. Look, they got swept by Texas. They lost 3 one-run games. Those guys are going to be ready to play. And one thing I will tell you, one stat that I noticed that's going to shock you, A&M has 3 lefties that start for them, okay? LSU this weekend was 3 for 36 against left-handed pitching. So, man, we're going to have to correct that going into this. And look, maybe that's one of those deals where you go more right-handed in the lineup. But this is going to be a tough series. A&M swinging the bats, and A&M has some good starting pitching, with Prager and Lampkin and Miles Patton. Those are all veteran guys that have good off-speed stuff. So big week ahead. But listen, we're going to celebrate for now. with this win we got over Tennessee. As always, thank you so much for joining me. We're going to wrap up there, and we'll be back after the midweek game and recap that and then get you ready for the A&M series.